apologize for our late start. We ran over on the Board of Equalization meeting. We're going to note that all commissioners are present, and the first item of business is the order of business. Are there any changes to the order of business? There are no changes to the order of business, so is there a motion to approve the order of business?
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have the motion and the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. The motion carries. Next item then is the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda you wish to discuss?
Mr. President, I'll move we approve the consent agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. So the motion carries. We'll go to the non-timetable agenda. Item A regards the Dickinson Water Supply Projects. Mr. Kessel?
Thank you, President Johnson and Commissioners. This first agenda item is in reference to an earlier report that you had with regard to an $18.4 million grant that the City of Dickinson received from the State Water Commission. The grant is will pay for 35% of engineering and 60% of eligible construction costs arising at the $18.4 million. The agreement itself outlines the terms of that agreement, and the projects that are within the 18.4 include the finished water pump station, which is a joint project with Southwest Water, the West Side elevated water storage, the West Side 18-inch water main tie, the West Side 24-inch dedicated water main, the East Side 24-inch water distribution line, the River Drive booster station, State Avenue booster station, the East Side elevated water storage, and water modeling. It's a lot of projects totaling over $32 million, 18 of which will now be covered through this grant. 3 cities received grant funds, including Williston, Dickinson, and Watford City, all in the oil-impacted region of North Dakota. We received the most grant funds, and I just wanted to point that out because I want to say how much I appreciate the team that put together a spreadsheet that keeps track of our projects, prioritizes them, and then provides those financing for those projects. And I believe to a large degree that spreadsheet, the organization that was displayed with regard to that spreadsheet, really helped to increase the amount of grant dollars to the City of Dickinson. So I just wanted to congratulate the executive team for all the work that they put into that document. It's a living document, a breathing document. We review it here on a regular basis, and I believe that that's what helped us get as much as we did. So with that, unless there's any questions, we would certainly recommend approval.
Thank you, Mr. Kessel. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Kessel? We're being asked to approve a cost share reimbursement agreement. Is there a motion regarding said agreement?
So moved.
Second.
We have the motion to approve and the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Item B, State Water Commission Allocation Agreement. This is a water agreement, and Mr. Colling is going to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mr. President and Commissioners. This agreement is an amendment to the existing agreement we have with the State Water Commission for the provision of potable water. This amendment, there's 3 parts to it. It increases the city's allocation of potable water to 6 million gallons per day. It allows for the city to obtain an emergency connection to a Southwest Water pipeline on the west side of town that we would be able to use for additional emergency fire flows. And it also includes the industrial water rate of $20 per thousand. This would be a oil industry specific rate. The city would monitor both its own water vendor and those private water vendors that are connected to the city system, and would be required to pay Southwest Water $20 per thousand for that water that is drawn off for the oil industry. That is a new rate. Currently, our rate is $3.61 per thousand for all water that the city receives from Southwest Water Authority. So it will require the city to increase our own rate schedule for industrial water or water vendors for which we sell water from the city's water system. The increase in the oil industry rate takes effect July 1st, so we would anticipate that we would have a fee resolution before you well in advance of that time. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Colling. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Colling? I have, I guess, a question, or maybe it's a comment, but with this agreement, where the city had been making roughly a $16 profit per 1,000 gallons of our water sales to the oil industry, that profit now effectively moves from the city to Southwest Water. So my question is, why would we continue to operate the water vendor after July 1st?
That's a great question, President Johnson, and it's one that we're still grappling with as a staff recommendation. We have other providers other than oil that are there that may still utilize that, but it is really our hope to have reuse water online and have a vendor outside of the city of Dickinson available for that reuse water. The impact of the Waters Depot goes well beyond the traffic that it incurs down there, the expense. I'm not sure that operating that vendor in its current location will be in our best interest long term because of the impacts that it does bring to us. We're going to hear a presentation later today with regard to providing transportation network around our community, and it may be in our best interest to close it down as you suggested and just simply move all the traffic.
Well, I haven't suggested that yet. I just asked the question. But does Southwest Water have a water vendor site that would be available to the oil industry and the egg industry?
They do. They have one that's available on the east side of town. It's a raw water site. It's not potable water site, but that is active and accepting customers as we speak. It's been open for quite a while now, several months.
Well, it seems to me it would make sense for us just to shut ours down come July 1st. If we have a hot, dry summer, we could have to restrict those kinds of sales anyway for a month or two. So if I'm not happy with this agreement or that provision of it, but if that's the way it's going to be, I don't see why we should go to the expense of keeping that open, and all it does is encourage truck traffic where we don't really want truck traffic.
I would like to mention that this rate also applies to the bulk water permit holders that the City of Dickinson has permitted. So it will effectively erase the same margin on those users as well. And currently we have, I believe, 4 bulk water permit issued.
So we'll lose the revenue to that.
Correct, unless we do a rate adjustment that will provide for a margin again.
Yeah. Well, that means our wastewater fund and water fund makes less money, which means over the long run we will have to raise our rates to our citizens to help cover the increased capital expenditures that we're experiencing today and will continue for some time. Because we were using the profits there to offset our capital expenditure costs.
We have, in that regard, President Johnson asked KLJ to provide us with a water rate review, much the same as Apex did on our sewer, and we hope to bring the results of that incorporating this agreement into those results. We hope to have those in front of you in the near term.
Thank you. Well, that was my question and comments. Anybody else? We have several timetable items, so the chair would entertain a motion regarding this agreement.
I'll move we approve the agreement, Mr. President.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? We'll vote. Mr. Jackson, Ms. Stuckert,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Altman.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, so the motion carries. We'll go to the timetable agenda, and we're very pleased to welcome to the podium today the Director of the North Dakota Department of Transportation, Grant Levi. We're very pleased that he's made the trip from Bismarck out to Dickinson. He's been meeting with city staff this afternoon, and he's kind enough to stay in the community and make a presentation. So welcome.
Thank you, President Johnson, members of the commission. I do appreciate this opportunity to share some information with you. Before I do that, there's a couple of key team members from the DOT that are also here that met with your team, and I'd like to point out Larry Gangle, who's our district engineer, Ron Hinke, our chief engineer for the DOT, and also Dave Leftwich, who's our Western Transportation Liaison, who spends an awful lot of time out here working with the cities and counties in the western part of the state. I'm going to take just a few minutes of your time just to walk through some information. Mr. Kessel saw me give a presentation similar to this a little while back and asked if I'd come out and just share it with you. The state of North Dakota has been blessed. We've been blessed with a very strong economy. That strong economy is built on a number of pillars. One of those pillars still remains and is agriculture, which is a very strong pillar for the state. And you can see by the information presented on the chart, since 1950 to 2012, we've had over a 400% increase in agriculture commodities coming off the fields. We use the 1950 reference because that's when much of the state's core infrastructure was put into place. When you think about township, county roadways, and even state roadways, when we developed that core infrastructure. In addition to that, we're one of the few states that has continued to see manufacturing growth since the year 2000. The energy sector, you know it as well, if not better than we do at the DOT. We're approaching that 1 million barrels of oil per day, and we'll be there shortly. I really like this chart because when I work with our peers from the Texas DOT, the chart shows that North Dakota's rate of production is greater than Texas. But I should point out that our Texas colleagues shared in a recent meeting I had with them that they have more oil activity in their state than the rest of the country does combined. So they made it very clear in their discussion. Population's changing. Working with your team today, they shared that the city of Dickinson is looking at some very large numbers. By 2020, somewhere in the neighborhood of 43,000 people in the city of Dickinson. That's exciting. That also brings some challenges. To put things in perspective, if you look at this map, this is 2008. This is truck traffic. Don't worry about the colors, look at the thickness of the lines. This is truck traffic traveling on state highways. This is 2012. That traffic is traveling through communities. That traffic is working its way across local systems to get there. I'll just show you 2008 again. This is 2012. We've got truck traffic traveling on Highway 22 that the width of the lines is nearing that of portions of our interstate system. Those are some real challenges for all of us in the transportation business. Here's what's happening in the state. We saw some tremendous growth occur from 2010 to 2012. About a 22% increase in traffic statewide, 53% increase in traffic in western North Dakota, the 17 oil-producing counties. The chart that you see before you really tracks traffic on a monthly basis. We do that through what's called ATRs, automatic traffic recorders, that are located throughout the state. If you look at the very top line, well, in 2013, we mirrored what 2012 was for traffic. The very top blue line in the left-hand side really shows that we're getting off to a stronger start in 2014. Western North Dakota and the 17 oil-producing counties, traffic actually went down somewhat in 2013. We had a slight decrease in traffic, and that's what these charts represent, both in truck and vehicle traffic. I will say statistically that's not very significant. And now we're not, with this slide, we're not at all trying to imply that we think it's a trend. We actually anticipate traffic continuing to grow. We were fortunate, we came out of the state legislative session. The governor had proposed and the legislative body approved $2.3 billion of funds for us to work with. Many of those funds are being spent on bypasses and city infrastructure, and I'll get to that in a little bit, in order to enhance the quality of life in communities. About $1.64 billion was set aside for highway improvement projects throughout the state, $617 million for city, county, and township roadways. This was intended just to give you a snapshot of where those funds will be spent, and it also shares how it came through the legislative session. About $1.5 billion will be spent in the western region. Just to show you the type of program that's in place. To help put things in perspective, back in 2001, our program was about $240 million. We've seen a 370% increase since 2007-2009 legislative session in funding. One of the things we thought would be good to share with you is federal funding. And it's important because you receive a portion of the federal funding. We've also historically used it to do work on state roadways within the city of Dickinson. As you can see, federal funding has pretty much remained flat or decreased through the course of the last few years. We're really concerned about the fact that the Federal Highway Trust Fund may run out of funding this summer before the September 30th expiration date of this federal fiscal year. What that would mean is that we could be in a position where we're going to have to work very closely with communities that have federally funded projects, and we've suggested to Secretary Fox that we may even have to delay some work that is occurring. That is very concerning. I will state that our congressional delegation is very well aware of this, and they are working on it. The bigger challenge from my perspective is we'll probably encounter some delay in payments, but from my perspective, 2014 will make it through that year. We'll be able to pay contractors and we'll get through. If you look at this chart, 2015, from all the indications we're getting, is that unless Congress does something to bring some additional funds into the Federal Highway Trust Fund, there will not be a federal highway program in 2015. There will not be one unless Congress takes some action. What does that mean for the city of Dickinson? The city of Dickinson receives somewhere in that neighborhood of $875,000 a year that's allocated for urban roads program work within the city of Dickinson, in addition to what we do on the state highway system, regional system. With the funding that's come into the state DOT and that's gone to our partners, the cities and counties, and your team briefed us in the work that's occurring in the city, we'll have about an $800 million program that will occur on state highways, county roadways, and city roadways in the state again in 2014. We had similar work in 2013. I will state that it will be busy. When you're traveling, you'll encounter roadway construction when you're out driving our infrastructure, and also from looking at the map shown in the city when you drive your city streets as well. This is just a map of what the roadway work will look like across the entire state. To give you some indication, what are we doing out west? I mentioned that one of the governor's priorities and one of our priorities was basically to get trucks out of cities, to get them away from communities. And we're doing that by building bypasses. One of the other priorities is obviously safety as well. So we're building a 4-lane roadway between Watford City and Alexandra that's under construction. We're also working, it's under construction between Alexandra and County Road 16, with ultimately having a 4-lane roadway into the city of Williston. And we're still working on that last segment, trying to work through process to get that under construction. That's on Highway 85. Truck reliever routes and bypasses, I won't cover the Dickinson interim bypass, I'll get to that in a minute, but we're working on bypasses around Williston, a northwest bypass. We'll have all stages of that under construction this year. Watford City, there's a bypass for Highway 85. There'll also be one for North Dakota 23 when you travel. Newtown, there'll be a northeast bypass with the second phase that will be in the works shortly. Alexandra, we're working on a bypass there as well. That's already been bid. Construction's already started on that. And just to the north of here on Highway 22, we're working on a bypass in Killdeer. And that's still in the design and route selection phase. What are we doing in Dickinson? And I want to thank all of you for the excellent working relationship we have with your team. It's been a pleasure working with that team to work through these projects. And as we spend time looking to the future on future work that's needed. We have the interim Dickinson Truck Bypass, which runs from Highway 22 and ties into Exit 59. We finished the first mile of that, and I had the pleasure today to drive that. It was the first time I've had the opportunity to drive it. It turned out very well. It also amazes me how much development's occurring every time I come out and see the city and what's occurring. That phase is completed for the most part. There's still a pedestrian and some path and some other work that needs to occur, but the roadway itself is completed. We hope to will complete this year the 4 miles remaining on that Phase 2 bypass. We also have bid an interchange at 116th Avenue. We have bid that, and that interchange will be under construction this year. That will be a 2-year project. And I keep telling our district we will get it done in 2 years, but that is going to be a challenge. That's a major undertaking. That is a 2-year project. We're doing some work on that. And just to tell you, as we talk about the future, eventually the interim bypass east-west portion, which ties into Highway 22, will be connected and extended over to the 116th Avenue interchange for the permanent bypass. And it's our hope that if funding becomes available this next upcoming legislative session, that we'll get that under construction in either federal fiscal, 2015 or 2016, depending on funding takes shape. We'll get that under construction as well. That will tie into the interchange and ultimately tie into some of the development that you have occurring to the south of the interchange. And it's also my understanding in conversation that's eventually where you want to put that water depot, to take the water depot out of the community. So we'll have everything tied into place to get those trucks out of this community. You can see that there also is some work on Highway 21 near New England we're doing. And the last major project that I want to touch on that we're working on now is the Dickinson State Avenue overpass, and I know your team has briefed you on that a number of times. I'll state that that's not moving along as quick as we would have hoped, but I will state to you that we're committed to it. And it's our intent to have that under construction no later than 2015 construction season. And we're working through those issues that need to be worked through on that job as well. One of the things we thought would be good to share with you is what's it costing to do business in the state of North Dakota. And this is on a statewide average basis. And I'll have a chart in a little bit just to share how the east and the western part of the state differ in costs. What used to cost $1 in 2001 is costing us $2.61 in 2013. Just to put things in perspective and what's happened, and I know you're all experiencing those same inflationary impacts. We thought it would be good just to give you some perspective on what the difference is between the West, and when I say the West, it's basically our Dickinson district, our Minot district, and our Williston district. And I need to point out that this is based on a limited number of projects that have occurred, and these will change as we continue to bid work. But if you take a reconstruction job where we're coming in and mining up our roadway, one of those that's tough for you to travel through. When we're into that, in the western part of the state, that's costing us about $1.8 million a mile, because we're adding so many turn lanes, and because the resources are costing us more. The aggregate's costing us more, the labor's costing us more, contractors have to house people. And as you know, that's a challenge. On the eastern part of the state, it's about 800,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. You can see the rest of the information. I won't spend any more time on this, but it is significant. We have shared this with the interim legislative committees as well, just to make the point that as they allocate resources, it does cost more to do work in this part of the state. The other thing we thought we should share is our biggest and top priority is safety, and it always will be safety. And one of the things we monitor is fatalities. In 2013, there were 148 people that died on the entire transportation system. While that's better than 2012 when it was 170, the number's still not acceptable. We have some challenges in the area of alcohol-related, 46%, and people just don't want to put seatbelts on. And that's also a challenge. Approximately 40% of those fatalities occurred on county and city roadways. Well, we can do things, and we are doing things in the transportation side to enhance safety, like putting in turn lanes, adding passing lanes, more signing, rumble strips, and also controlling access. We can do those types of things. So much of it depends on that person that gets behind the wheel and driving as well. One of the last things that I wanted to share with you is that we really appreciate the work that you do as a commission, and the county commission does as well, in controlling access. Because from a safety perspective, that's one of the more important things that we can do on our highways, is to make sure we control that access, because each and every time an access point's added, it adds a conflict, which creates a potential for a crash. And on a two-lane highway, each entrance area, each access point, there's 32 vehicle-to-vehicle conflict points, and you can see that chart. That's what occurs. On a four-lane roadway, there's 42 vehicle-to-vehicle conflict points. We recognize the fact that our roadways are there, and they also provide a gateway to businesses. And we need to find that balance in putting access points into place to have those businesses be able to function. We really appreciate working with you, though, to control those access and bring them into major focal points on the major state highway roadways. And I'll suggest to you that that interim bypass and permanent bypass will be a challenge that we'll all be faced with as developers come in and want to develop along those major corridors. That's why we thought it would be good to share this with you, just something for you to consider as you consider those access requests in your community. I want to thank you so much for your time. I'm here to answer any questions if you may have them. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to be out here with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levi. Are there questions or comments for Mr. Levi?
Mr. President, I would have a comment.
Study. I'm sorry, go ahead, Gene.
Well, we, and direct this to you, Mr. Levi, but also the others that you have with you. We worry sometimes that we're not getting enough attention out here from the state. But I think the people at this table know, I'm not sure the public knows, that that's not the case with the DOT. The DOT has really been responsive to the needs of Stark County, Dickinson, and this area in general. And I think that needs to be said. We need to recognize that. We need to make sure that our citizens know that. It's been very good, and we thank you for that.
President Johnson, Commissioner Jackson, thank you. We appreciate those comments, and we are here to work with you to deal with. We know you have many challenges to deal with, and we're here to work with you on those transportation challenges.
Mr. Steiner?
The fact that I find the most interesting here is the slide for the cost of doing business. It's basically twice the amount to do business out here as it is in the eastern part of the state. You know, so I hope that somehow that can get relayed to the legislature. You know, I'm sure they've seen these numbers also, but I think it's numbers like this that we have to give them all the time to make them aware of our problems out here. 'Cause what you do in Fargo isn't the same as what you do in Dickinson. It's not going to cost the same. A street in Fargo and a street in Dickinson, 2 times the amount of money is what we're seeing here. So,
President Johnson, Commissioner Steiner, we have shared and will continue to share this information with the legislative body. And I would like to point out, when you look at that slide, that it really depends on the type of work that you're undertaking. But you're right, when you're dealing with major reconstruction projects that require a lot of resources, both from a person resource, equipment resource, aggregate supplies, asphalt, it is quite a bit more expensive here. When it comes to just overlaying a roadway, I think we're closer to that 20% additional cost. And that's what we have shared with the legislative body, and we will continue to share.
One question. With the overpass, you're starting the process next year, then in 2015?
Yes, the way things are taking shape, we had some challenges working through some right-of-way. We took our time working with the city to make sure we were all comfortable with the alternative we finally end up with. And it's our intent to either bid a project out to contractors in November or February of next year. So, but it will be under construction in 2015.
Okay, thank you.
On the slide that showed the traffic in western North Dakota, it looked to me like Highway 22 is as wide as Highway 85. Do your traffic counts show traffic up and down Highway 22 equal to or even greater than Highway 85? That stretch between Watford City and Williston looked wider. I'd concede that, but it looked to me like there's quite a bit of traffic on Highway 22.
President Johnson, your observation's correct. There are portions of Highway 22 that have as much traffic as portions of Highway 85 that are traveled. And we've made a significant investment in Highway 22, reconstructing it and adding passing lanes. I'm happy to report that your travels will be better on Highway 22 this year because we won't have any construction occurring, because we've made a significant investment north of Kilder all the way up to Highway 23, widening the roadway and adding passing lanes, and also from Dickinson north. But we still have a segment that we intend to put under construction in 15 or 16, which is to the south of Kilder, that we need to do. But we will get that in shape as well.
I had the opportunity to drive Highway 22 about 2 weeks ago, and I have to agree with you. It is so much improved. It actually was kind of fun to drive it again, and it hasn't been fun for a few years. So thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments? Well, I would just echo what Commissioner Jackson said. I think the North Dakota DOT has treated Dickinson and Stark County very fairly. I know we appreciate working with you and your staff, and we're just very pleased with your efforts out here, and thank you very much.
Thank you, and I'll just add, Larry Gangle's here. He's here to work with you, and he does a great job for us at the DOT, and I appreciate the team I get to work with.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it is 5:30. We have a 5:30 timetable agenda item, and Mr. Colling, did you want to introduce Attorney Grant?
Mr. President, Commissioners, Attorney Becky Grant handles the municipal prosecution for the city on behalf of Eagletoft Sickler Lawyers. Does a fine job, and she's here to give you a presentation of her report. I will let you know, and I'm sure she will too in her presentation, but they did have a jury trial on Friday and obtained a conviction on a DUI matter. So we can add that to the list of accomplishments for Ms. Grant.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Colling. As Mr. Colling said, my name is Becky Grant. I'm an associate at Eagletoft Sickler, and I have been managing the municipal prosecution contracts since January of 2012. The purpose of the memorandum that I submitted and this presentation is to update you all on the status of that contract as we've come to a close on the first quarter of 2014. As always, as I proceed through the slides, please interrupt me with any questions. Again, we began prosecuting for the City of Dickinson on January 1st, 2012. The 2013 year-end presentation was before the Commission on February 3rd, 2014. Our firm has opened and prosecuted 1,655 files and had 561 active files as of the end of the first quarter of 2014. This slide offers a comparison of the amount of criminal citations that have been issued for 2012, 2013, and 2014 for January, February, and March. As you can see, the number of criminal citations issued has increased for all represented months from 2013. This slide offers a comparison of the total revenue generated from criminal and traffic citations between 2012, 2013, 2014 for January, February, and March. Again, the total revenue for all represented months has increased from 2013. We continue to handle the city prosecution contract by appearing in court 3 times per week. Our scheduled court times and types of appearances are listed on the slide. During the first quarter of 2014, there were no jury or bench trials. This slide indicates that there's currently 1 misdemeanor jury trial and 1 misdemeanor bench trial scheduled for May. And that was as of last week when I drafted it. It's now completely changed. As Matt mentioned, the misdemeanor jury trial that's referenced was held on Friday, and we were able to obtain a conviction on an aggravated DUI charge. The misdemeanor bench trial that is referenced has been canceled, and that is due to the defendant's failure to appear at a pretrial hearing, so a warrant is currently out on that case. And we had a new misdemeanor jury trial set, and that's on a simple assault charge, and that's expected to occur before the end of May. We've continued to provide the Commission with information regarding the remand process that we initiated in January of 2012. We've remanded 293 cases since taking over the municipal court contract in January of 2012. Those remanded cases have generated $144,370 for the City of Dickinson. Looking at the first quarter of 2014 numbers alone, we remanded 17 cases. Those cases have generated $10,070 for the City of Dickinson. Currently, we have several criminal complaints that have been submitted by officers for charging determinations, and I expect to be reviewing those shortly. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions from the commissioners.
Are there any comments or questions? Well, thank you for being here and reporting.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, commissioners.
Okay. I think we can go back down to the non-timetable agenda. We'll do item C, which is the Public Works Plan annexation, and Attorney Colling will present that.
Mr. President and Commissioners, as you are aware, the city is currently constructing the Public Works facility on the east end of town. That property is currently outside of city limits, and this ordinance would bring that property, the entire 25 acres, into city limits. Because the city owns all of the property, we are not required to send out the notices as we typically do to landowners, since it's only city property that is being annexed. But we are required to adopt an ordinance in order to bring that property within city limits. If the commission does pass first reading of this ordinance, we will coordinate with the county to make sure they're aware of the annexation, as well as publish in the newspaper as required by law. This would be ordinance 1548 for your records. City staff would recommend approval. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Colleen. At this time, I'd ask if there's any members from the public that would like to comment regarding ordinance 1548. If you would, just come to the podium, state your name, and we'll hear your comments. Anyone from the public? There's no one from the public. Any comments or questions by commissioners? Is there a motion regarding first reading of ordinance 1548?
I make a motion to approve first reading of ordinance 1548.
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Olman?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. So the motion carries. We will go to item D, 40th Street update, and Mr. Colleen will present this item also.
Mr. President, Commissioners, this resolution is a resolution that provides for the establishment of a special assessment district. You're aware of the 40th Street project that the city has been considering and taking under design for the last many months. The plan, as it is laid out for you in the engineer's report, which is part of your packet, we anticipate the cost of the road is approximately $7 million. Obviously, that has not been bid yet, so that is an engineer's estimate. We currently have scheduled in our capital improvement plan that this project will receive about a little over $5 million in funding. So we do have about a $2 million funding gap for 40th Street. We did have a couple of meetings with surrounding landowners, landowners that adjoin 40th Street, to discuss options of how to close that gap. Our initial proposal was to have landowners come forward with the money up front, that they would pay on an equal basis, more or less, for the $2 million funding gap. I did receive some resistance to that, and so city staff went back to the drawing board, and we have prepared a plan, and this resolution is the culmination of that, to put a special assessment district together so that the city would bear the upfront cost for the entire construction of the road, but we would be able then to special assess about $2 million back to the adjoining property owners, that they would pay for that $2 million funding gap over the course of time. The landowners were presented with a draft petition that they had the opportunity to sign if they wished to endorse this special assessment district. We did receive responses from one landowner that did sign the petition, but the other landowners did not. If this resolution is adopted tonight, our process would be then to publish the resolution, and we would have a 30-day time period in which affected landowners could file a written protest with the city in order to protest out that special assessment district. If the owners of less than a majority of the land that's incorporated in the district filed a protest, then we would be able to proceed with the district and assess the land, get the project completed. If we receive protests from more than a majority of the landowners, then the district could not go forward. The protest would be a bar to us proceeding. But you do have the engineer's report in front of you and the resolution in front of you. I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Colleen. Any comments or questions?
Mr. President, Mr. Colleen, have we decided how we're going to handle a special assessment district, whether it be by square footages or frontage?
We have not, Mr. Steiner. The actual special assessments are taken care of by a special assessment commission. We do have a draft of what we think or how those assessments could be done both by linear foot and square foot and by equal assessment per lot. So we do have those numbers drafted, but as far as endorsing any one of those proposals, we have not taken that step. No.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Just one, so the 2 million would be assessed totally. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Colling, do the adjacent property owners understand that if the improvement district isn't activated either by petition or lack of protest, that we're probably looking at delay here in this construction?
Mr. Jackson, we did talk about that with all the landowners in the meetings that we had. That a delay is a possibility here. It's certainly not our desire to delay it. We would like to have this constructed in 2014, but obviously we're running short on time given the construction season that we have. That is a possibility, though, that it may be delayed.
By acting favorably on the resolution, though, it just moves the process forward.
Correct, Mr. President, yes.
Okay.
Mr.
Mr.
President.
Steiner.
And Mr. Kubas, I was at this meeting, and I think Mr. Kubas stated that if everything goes as planned from here on out, the earliest would be 6 weeks from now. Is that correct?
That was correct. That was if this district were created by petition. Some of the timeframes and the timetables by state statute are less if it's created by a petition. The protest period, if it were created by resolution tonight, would be 30 days. I think petition would cut that down to 2 weeks, and the advertisement period when created by petition is less as well. So the 6-week time frame was a best case scenario if it were created by petition.
Thank you.
Mr. Colling, is there a deadline to receive petitions? Is there, at some point, where do we go from the petition process to the longer protest process?
Mr. Jackson, I think if this resolution is adopted today, we'll go forward and we'll publish the resolution and start the 30-day time period running. We want to do that as early as possible. If at any time more than a majority of the landowners submit a petition, we can cut off that 30-day time period whenever we would receive a majority.
Okay.
We haven't to date, and so we feel it's necessary for us to move forward as expeditiously as possible.
Other questions, comments? As part of the process, as we go forward, I know you mentioned the written protests. Will there also be public hearing as part of the process?
Yes, Mr. President. After the 30-day period, you are required as a board to meet again at a city commission meeting, consider any protests that have been filed, and make a finding as to whether or not they constitute a majority of the landowners.
And at that time, then you hold a public hearing?
Correct.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Would there be a motion regarding this resolution? You did say it's Resolution 28-2014?
Mr. President, this will be Resolution 29.
29, okay.
Mr. President, I'll move that we approve Resolution 29, 2014.
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Jackson.
Aye.
Mr. Steiner.
Aye.
Mr. Altman.
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, so the motion carries. We've got a 5:40 timetable agenda item. That's, I think, to get an update on construction communications by DLN Consulting, and representing them is Deb Nelson. So, welcome.
Thank you. Mr. President and Commissioners, thank you for giving me a bit of time this evening. With help from Aaron in your IT department, we'll be able to show you some of the things that we've been able to do in the short time that we have been working with your city staff to get information out to the public for the various projects that are underway in the city. The first thing that I'd like to do is tell you that we have a tagline. This was selected from a number that we presented to the city staff, and so all of our information is going out called, under the tagline, "Success is always under construction." The first thing that we did, because the city website is accessed so much, we wanted an easy place for people to get information by coming to the city website. So if you look at the small tab, if I can get it going, right here, we have just a button that says City Construction. If you click onto that, that takes you immediately to a blog site that we have set up, and we've been posting on that almost on a daily basis. We have some home information. We put on the city spring cleanup information, also your public meeting coming up on May 7th with your city project managers. And then if you click on to maybe announcements, you can see we just actually posted this, and these are live posts, and this is a closure, I believe. Actually, it's not a closure. It's a delayed construction that's happening on South State Avenue beginning tomorrow. And so as you go down, you can see that we have continuous posts. We try to put in maps. Mr. Kubas has been gracious in giving us a Google Earth map site where they have mapped the various projects, and so we've been able to access that. And so this just continues to show all the different posts and blogs. If you are interested, you can follow. I won't click on this, but if you follow, you can enter your email, and you will get immediate emails about the different information that we're putting out. So we're inviting people and asking people to do that. We also, on the blog, if we come down here, this will also take you to, we have a Facebook page. And this is getting more activity as we go on. We have 153 posts. This has been up about a week is all, and people are starting to go onto it. We have 153 likes, but we have considerable more traffic than that. We're able to access the back end of the Facebook page, and we're able to monitor how much traffic is actually coming on. And we're getting a lot more traffic than just those 153 people that have hit like on that page. People can comment if they wish. The city project staff will be able to put in their own comments on these sites within probably a day, if not already. I'm not sure, Mr. Zuroff, has Lydia gotten hold of you? Not yet? Okay, we should have that up and running by tomorrow. And so we're trying to keep people informed in a variety of different ways. You can see this. We are also putting on information from the city's franchisees who are working with the city, Mid-Continent. If you click into this, you'll get information from Mid-Continent about how they are operating in neighborhoods so people can feel comfortable with who is in their backyards. We've also invited a number of other people to give us information, and that's starting to come in. If you are a tweeter, you can go to Twitter, and the Twitter is @City of Dickinson, and you'll get information on that as well. We've been very fortunate in that the Dickinson Press they've picked up every single thing that we've sent them, and they've been gracious in getting that information out so that the driving public will know where there is construction and what it may, or how that might affect them on their daily basis. We're also getting information out to the radio stations at this point in time. KFYR has picked us up, and we're on their Facebook page. And so we're getting the information out in a number of ways. We have other things that will be coming up and that we'll be doing in the future, in the very near future. We also have, we're going to be giving out a little magnet at the utilities desk, payment desk. So anybody coming into City Hall will get a little magnet that directs them to the website or the Facebook page or the Twitter account. And so that would be wherever they decide they want to put that in front of them. So we are underway. We've been meeting on a weekly basis every morning, every Friday morning, not every morning, every Friday morning at 9 o'clock. And our project staff are there along with some of the franchisees and some of the other construction managers who are working a variety of different projects. And it's been a very good information sharing time for those people to all identify who's doing what, when is it happening, how can they stay out of each other's way, and how can they complement each other. So we think that that's been a very positive communication tool for us. And with that, I'll ask if you have any questions.
Well, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Nelson or comments?
I have one, and maybe I missed it. Are we doing anything on Channel 19? Did I miss that?
That's coming up. That's all right. I just sent an email to Sean and said, we're ready to start airing on Channel 19. So we'll be
Okay.
putting on probably a weekly short video on what is happening in the city.
Great.
Yep.
I think all this looks great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Good job. It's 5:45. We have a 5:45 agenda item, and that's to hear from the Theodore Roosevelt Center regarding their planning process, and representing the Planning Center is Sharon Kilzer, so welcome.
Thank you, President Johnson, members of the Commission. Really appreciate this opportunity to visit with you today. Great things are happening at the Theodore Roosevelt Center, and I'm pleased to be here with my colleague Clay Jenkinson and update you on some of the activities that are going on. We have some new opportunities before us, and as we continue to grow and develop, we've been advised at every turn by others around the country who are doing similar things to us that our ultimate success depends on the collaboration and support of the community. And so we're very pleased to be able to update you about our activities and these new prospects that are on the horizon for us. So just as some background information, the Theodore Roosevelt Center at Dickinson State University is creating the only comprehensive online collection of the documents and artifacts of an American president. These materials are accessible online to anyone on any device with an internet connection. Through the Theodore Roosevelt Digital Library, to date, we have more than 21,000 documents. I have a summary for you there that says just under 21,000, but we did cross that threshold last week. These materials cover the entire span of Theodore Roosevelt's life, and they comprise a wide variety of formats, from photographs, political cartoons, letters, and speeches, to audio and video files of Theodore Roosevelt. And we brought a few samples of those, and Clay Jenkinson will highlight those for you in a moment. So who's using this massive digital resource? Again, in the materials I've provided, you'll find a list of both popular and scholarly requests to which we've responded as the Theodore Roosevelt Center staff. I'd like to highlight just a couple of items for you from both within and outside of higher education. First, there are several recent publications that have acknowledged the Theodore Roosevelt Center and the Digital Library. Dr. Louis Gould, a renowned historian of TR's presidency, recently published this book on Edith Roosevelt, TR's second wife. This is part of a First Ladies series. And Dr. Gould writes regarding our help with this research, his research for this work. He makes reference to Dr. Stacy Cordery, who spent a semester at DSU as a Theodore Roosevelt Fellow. And he says, Stacy Cordery facilitated this project by acting as a liaison with the Theodore Roosevelt Center at Dickinson State University in North Dakota to make digitized documents from the Roosevelt papers available to me in a very timely manner. And so this is just one of a number of acknowledgments. A younger scholar, Monica Rico, is at Lawrence University in Appleton, Wisconsin, and this book, Nature's Noblemen, was published last fall. We actually didn't know about Dr. Rico until the book came out. I met her at a conference and she said, "Oh, you're the Theodore Roosevelt Digital Library? That was so helpful to me." So Dr. Gould is a regular correspondent of ours and a friend of the center's, But Dr. Rico was simply using the materials online. We are actually cited in the citations in her book, and we were pretty excited about that. That's the first occasion on which we were actually cited that we're aware of. Finally, Chip Bishop is another author who just published very recently, Quentin and Flora, A Roosevelt and a Vanderbilt in Love During the Great War. And his book contains an acknowledgement similar to Dr. Lou Gould's. So our work is beginning to influence Roosevelt scholarship and publications about Roosevelt's era. And we're being acknowledged, both the university and the community here, for having created this resource. But outside of academia, we're also getting some attention. We've been consulted or referenced by groups as varied as BBC News and NFL Films. The BBC citation in a story regarding the teddy bear led to thousands of hits on our website from the UK. This was on Super Bowl Sunday, and I had to try to figure out what was happening Super Bowl Sunday in the US, and it was not, in fact, in the US, it was in the UK. The BBC actually used one of the images from the website and linked back, and that's what led to all those hits. NFL Films sought us out looking for video footage of TR for a Super Sundays series that they were doing. And most recently, one of the photographs in the digital library was posted to reddit.com, a popular social networking site, and we received tens of thousands of hits in just a few minutes. It did crash the website, and we're trying to solve that now that we have greater capacity to serve that kind of a demand. So we're proud to be able to highlight through our work both Dickinson State University and the state of North Dakota. Every person who visits the website and the digital library gets a glimpse of Western North Dakota, TR's second home. And because of the success we've achieved, the state legislature issued a challenge to us last spring that has opened up really significant new possibilities. And I'm going to turn it over to Clay to talk with you a little bit about those.
Mayor Johnson and Commissioners, thank you. You have such weighty business in front of you. It seems almost frivolous for us to talk about Theodore Roosevelt in the face of this, but this is really good news, I think, for Dickinson and Western North Dakota. You know, there are 13 presidential libraries in the United States. Not every president has one. The first presidential library is Herbert Hoover in Iowa, and every president since Hoover has a presidential library, but the earlier ones like Jefferson and Abraham Lincoln and Andrew Jackson and so on didn't have presidential libraries. And their papers have been scattered to the Library of Congress and private museums and private hands and so on. And so we decided a few years ago that we would create a digital Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library, gathering together everything that he ever wrote, every letter, every diary, every cartoon related to him, all the films related to him. There are more than 150 films in which Theodore Roosevelt plays some sort of small role. Newspaper clippings, scrapbooks, audio. There are about 8 known pieces of Theodore Roosevelt audio, and we've collected them all digitally. And so we've gathered them in this bin, and 21,000 of these items. We have over 1 million pages that we have already digitized from the Library of Congress, from Harvard, from the National Park Service, and from other places. But of the 1 million pages that we have, we've been able to process 21,000, which makes them searchable, which makes them accessible on the website, and we want to accelerate that. But now the state legislature has said, well, this looks very promising, and so instead of just having this as a digital project, we're going to give you a challenge grant to build a freestanding facility in Dickinson, North Dakota that will become the National Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library. So think of that. If you've been to some of them, JFK in Boston, Ronald Reagan in Southern California. We were just at the George W. Bush Library in Dallas a few weeks ago. Dickinson, North Dakota could have one of the national presidential libraries. And the legislature gave us a challenge that we would receive up to $15 million if we would raise $3 million from private funds, and we're actively doing that. And so we couldn't be more excited about this, and we've actually hired a nationally highly regarded consulting group from Ohio to come out and help us decide where this needs to go, how big it is, what's in it, who visits it, what community activities it might have, what sort of balance you now create between electronic exhibits and old-style things like spurs and guns and saddles and so on. And this group has been absolutely terrific and has helped us get towards our goal, which is sometime in the next 5 to 7 years to have this extraordinary facility. It'll certainly be much more than $15 million in the end, but that's the start. And when it happens, it's going to put Dickinson on the map in a whole new way, and people literally will come from all over the world to see the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library. You know, people go to the, as people go and get the stamped at the national parks, they also go to all the presidential libraries. We don't know the numbers quite yet. It depends on so many factors, but probably 50 to 100,000 people will come just for this per annum from all over. So what a great thing for my hometown, Dickinson, and I hope for the city of Dickinson. So just to give you a sense, I know your time is so limited, but we brought a couple of things that if you will allow Sharon to approach the bench after I finish, I wanted just to show you a couple of these. This is a diary. Theodore Roosevelt kept a pocket diary, and I've actually held it in my hands in the Library of Congress. It's 2 inches by 3 inches. It's that small. And his wife, as you probably know, his wife and his mother died simultaneously on Valentine's Day, 1884. And of course, this was a shattering experience in his life. It's one of the things that propelled him out here to recover. And he wrote in this diary, and you can see it here, "The light has gone out of my life with an X." And so we have now digitized this. I mean, it's almost impossible to actually ever go hold this in the Library of Congress. It's now been digitized, and it will be available to anyone on earth free 24 hours a day. This is just one of what will be 1 million pages of Roosevelt. And they're not just typescripts. They're often beautiful in some way. They have doodlings. They have little cartoons that he drew. He crosses out one word and adds another. So Sharon will bring this forward. Here's something that I thought would particularly interest you. This is the cover of a magazine called Success, but it says Training for the Presidency, 1902, and guess where? He trained for the presidency, right here in the Badlands of North Dakota. What we found is that because of his Badlands experience, he's the most cartooned president in his time. There are probably tens of thousands of TR-related cartoons from newspapers, and he is almost invariably depicted as a cowboy or a rough rider in those cartoons. That's how much influence America's first cowboy president had on popular culture. But the piece that I really wanted to show you today is a letter that it's not that we discovered it because we didn't. It had been found in Harvard by another scholar, but I want to save the second page. But this letter was the first impression that Theodore Roosevelt had of North Dakota. He came here on September 7th, 1883. He got off the train in the middle of the night out at the town of Little, Missouri, which was the predecessor of Medora. He slept in the Pyramid Park Hotel. And the next morning he wrote this letter, and it had been in Harvard's files for decades, and no one had found it until about 6 years ago. Now we have digitized it, and let me just give you a sense of it. It's one thing to see a transcript. It's an entirely different thing to see this letter, which is probably 4 inches by 5, but we digitized at such a high resolution that you could blow it up to the side of a building. But he starts September 8th, 1883. He writes to his first wife, Alice, who died in that terrible moment in 1884. He says, "Darling wifey, yesterday evening I took the 6 o'clock train from Bismarck and sat up till 10 playing whist with a party of jolly young Englishmen," and so on. And then he arrives in the middle of the night in western North Dakota. He hasn't seen the Badlands yet because he arrived in the dark and there was no lighting. So the next morning he has that experience that you've all had of seeing the Badlands in a big way for the first time. And he says that he woke up and there was a single wash basin for about 25 men, and he found somebody who knew somebody that he knew back in New York, and he says, "He took me out for a ride in the surrounding country." And this is the first impression Theodore Roosevelt, a future president, had of our Badlands. It is a very desolate place, high, barren hills scantily clad with coarse grass, and here and there in sheltered places a few stunted cottonwood trees, washouts deepening at times into great canyons and steep cliffs of most curious formation abound everywhere, and it was a marvel to me to see how easily our Mustangs scrambled over the frightful ground which we crossed while trying to get up to the grassy plateaus over which we could gallop. There is very little water here, and what there is so bitter as to be almost a poison and nearly undrinkable. It is so alkaline that the very cow's milk tastes of alkaline. And so this letter It's something that we've effectively discovered, and it will now influence the future of Roosevelt scholarship forever. These things that we're unearthing from the bowels of the Library of Congress and from Harvard and from the National Park Service will now be easily accessible to anyone on Earth, and they will shape the discourse. And as Sharon said, when they come to our site, they're coming from every continent. When they come to our site, they can't get to Roosevelt without seeing pictures of Western North Dakota. We insisted with the web provider that they can't get to the documents without having an encounter with Dickinson and the Badlands of Western North Dakota first. That's going to make a huge difference, and it's going to propel visitors to come to visit the Roosevelt Center when it's built. So, why are we here? As Sharon said, when we have traveled to the Bush Library and the Kennedy Library and the Reagan Library and the Carter Library and the Clinton Library, and now to the new Lincoln Library that's being built in Springfield, every project has said the same thing. You cannot succeed unless there is deep community involvement. Your city commission needs to be involved, the county needs to be involved, the CVB needs to be involved, the universities, the schools, citizens groups. This has to be a community project, and so it's sort of coming through the back door because our success propelled the legislature to give us this challenge grant, but you know we will be back and we will want to ask for a significant level of support from you, not just financial, but an endorsement of this project and other cooperative arrangements, because we truly believe that within a few years this is going to be one of the monuments of North Dakota life, and it will gloriously be placed in the city of Dickinson, and we will all be the better for it. So that's what we have to say. We'd gladly take questions, but we know how serious your agenda is.
When you, well, thank you. First of all, thank you both for being here. Very good presentations. When you talk about support, and I'm sure you mean some significant financial support, do you have an amount in mind that we can begin to think about? And we are fast approaching our budget season.
Yes.
So.
Well, you know, when I read about what's happening here in my hometown, I realize how unbearably pressed you are for funds, and so we realize where we probably belong in the queue, but if you want to just give us the $3 million, we'll be happy. You know, seriously, I mean, I know it sounds like a gigantic amount of money, but I would hope that you would be able to make a commitment over a number of years for something like $1 million to this project. This is probably going to be a $37 million facility. With this team, this Hilferty team that's our consultancy group, has people who are working on the numbers, how many dollars this will bring into hotel rooms, how many meals this will sell, you know, et cetera. I mean, we're not doing this just as a pipe dream. We have serious people working the numbers, and it'll depend on location and traffic and hotel room availability and how emphatic the oil boom becomes, et cetera. But we are probably going to need to raise privately $10 or $15 million in the next 5 years. And we know that that's our responsibility, not that of the city of Dickinson. But I think it would be just marvelous if the city could, over a series of years, provide $1 million to the success of this project. And if you have a lot more in your pockets, we'll take that too. But if whatever you gave us, you've already supported our symposia for the last 8 years, and we're so thankful for that. And you played a significant role in the creation of the Theodore Roosevelt statue, which is on the grounds of the Stark County Courthouse where he gave that famous speech in 1886.
I remember that ceremony.
Dennis Johnson was there. He gave some remarks, and it was a beautiful day in North Dakota. We had the National Theodore Roosevelt Association. There were hundreds of people on that lawn in front of the courthouse, and we were thrilled to be able to unveil a statue by a DSU alum of TR, and TR gave his first great national speech on that site. We discovered it, and between the county commission and Dennis Johnson and the commission, we were thrilled to be able to support that project.
Do you have a sense of when you would like us to begin our
Yes.
contributions, if we acted favorably on this?
Yes. The challenge grant from the state legislature is that we must have our $3 million before the next legislative session ends, and preferably when it begins. Now, we're raising money, but if the city would say, let's just say, hypothetically, if the city said, we will give you $1 million over an 8-year period, we've been told that that would be eligible for the match to release those funds. Once we get the $15 million, we're off and running, and other things will begin to follow. But it's critical that we meet that trigger, and so a pledge, even a pledge in advance over a number of years of that kind of money would qualify, we're told, for the match. So sometime in the next week, maybe? 10 weeks?
Next week?
3 months? Sometime before January would be ideal if you're able to do it.
Well, we would have first reading of our 2015 budget. I think that's first meeting of September. So at that point, you would know whether you're in our budget or not, and for what amount. So
this is such a significant thing, and the ask is so dramatic that it's sort of unfair to just spring something like this on all of you, but we would love to come back another time or meet with you in another way to talk to you about the plans. This Hilferty group will be coming back now. They've been here 5 times. They'll be coming back at the end of May, and they will have a plan for us. It will be the beginning of what the layout of the facility will look like, what sorts of things will go on in it, how many square feet to exhibits, how many square feet to the back shop where the digital work is being done, the gift shop, and so on. And so we will be able to bring you something much more concrete that we can pore over and work the numbers and so on, and do that at your leisure or your request.
comments or questions here? Mr. Kessel?
I have a question about a donation that the city could make. Does it have to be in cash, or can it be in lieu of cash?
I'm no expert, but I believe that it could be in lieu of cash. There's some flexibility in the way that the state match works, and we're even, for example, if you said you weren't interested in providing a financial commitment to the project, we will not be able to succeed without being involved with you in a whole range of ways, and so we would be open to any suggestions that you might want to make about this. But as you know, cash is always the best sort of approach to meeting these triggers.
I hope our citizens understand just what a unique thing this could be for Dickinson.
I hope so too.
So unique.
You know, there are only 13 presidential libraries, and we would, and this is one of the Rushmore 4. We're not talking about Millard Fillmore or James Buchanan here. We're talking about one of the most extraordinary men in American history. And you know, in 1904, when he was president, he had a senator in from New Mexico, Senator Fall, and this, we discovered this in our work. But he said to Senator Fall, "Well, if you could only choose one moment of all of the moments of your life, and everything else would have to be blocked out of your memory forever. If you only got to keep one memory, what would it be?" Of course, typical of TR, he didn't wait for Senator Fall to answer. He answered and said, I would keep my time as an authentic cowboy and rancher in western North Dakota as the one experience of my life. More than San Juan Hill, more than his children, more than the presidency. The one thing that he said he wanted to cling to above all others was this moment. You know, this is the place where the Roosevelt Center has to be. If they were building it at Sagamore Hill or Boston or Harvard or Washington, D.C., we would yield to that, of course. But no one has done this, and so it's an opening for North Dakota to make this big claim and have the presidential library right here. And it would be, I think, one of the best things that could ever happen to North Dakota culturally. Sharon?
Well, I think you have an opportunity here, and the reason I say that is because you know, 30% of our 1% sales tax and our hospitality sales tax this project would, I think, qualify for using those funds. And those funds are not funds that we can use for water towers and sewers and, you know, other infrastructure like that. And there's an opportunity, I think, as we get closer to our budget season and look at other demands on those funds. But I would say there's a pretty good opportunity that the city would have some funds, especially if you're talking, say, a 5 to 8 year period of time, that we could make a pledge that there's an opportunity that there would be some funds available.
That's wonderful news. I hope it works out that way. We will be very eager to supply you anything you could possibly want between now and your budget time, so that you have something you can really look at and study, so it's not just this.
Well, you've provided us with a lot this evening with your presentation, plus we have some significant handouts here. I think you're welcome to come back and report on updates as you think they're needed. It's not only a good way of informing us, but viewership on Channel 19 is pretty high, and so you get your message out to the public. But I agree with Commissioner Jackson here. This is very significant. It's a real opportunity for Dickinson State, Western North Dakota in general. I'm sure hopeful that both the public sector, which is state and city, county, and the private sector will generously support this project.
It's going to require national, state, and local support, and of course there are people in the nation that want this built here too, but it's the local support that matters most, because it's really Dickinson's center, not Medora, not Bismarck, Dickinson. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for being here. Well, from Theodore Roosevelt, we go to Rod's Hot Oil Service, which was a special use permit, and Community Development Director Curtin is going to present this item.
Mr. President, Commission, this is a special use permit for a propane storage tank. The site is located at 3205 110th Avenue Southwest. The site is zoned general industrial, and it is 1.8 acres. It does require a special use permit due to the above-ground storage tank. The Planning and Zoning Commission and city staff recommend approval with 5 attached conditions that are attached as part of the adopting resolution. Mr. President?
Thank you, Mr. Curtin. Mr. Colleen, is this 28 then?
No, Mr. President, this will be Resolution 30.
This is 30, okay. So this Resolution 30-2014, you've heard Mr. Curtin's introduction, his recommendations. Are there any questions or comments by commissioners here? This is I believe this is a resolution on the agenda. It says ordinance, but on the screen here, I've got a resolution.
Yes, Mr. President, it is a resolution for your consideration.
So,
I make a motion to approve Resolution 30-2014.
thank you, Mrs. Stuckert.
Second it.
We have the motion and the second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Olmans?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, so the motion carries. We have a 605. This is a rezoning petition for Prairie Creek, and Mr. Curtin will introduce this item also.
This is a rezoning petition from low-density residential to medium-density residential, high-density residential, and community commercial for the recently approved Prairie Creek subdivision situated at the southeast corner of 21st Street West and State Avenue. The Planning and Zoning Commission and city staff recommend approval. Mr. President?
Thank you, Mr. Curtin. This is an ordinance. Well, what's our number on this one?
Mr. President, this is ordinance number 1549.
1549, okay. If there's anyone from the public that would like to comment regarding ordinance 1549, you may do so now. Just come to the podium, state your name, we'll hear your comments. Anyone wish to comment on 1549? There's no comments. Any comments or questions by commissioners?
I'll make a motion to approve first reading of ordinance number 1549.
Now second.
We have the motion and the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion carries. We have a 610. This is future land use map amendments. There are 2 of them, and again, Mr. Curtan will be introducing these items.
Mr. President, this is an amendment to the future land use map of the Dickinson Comprehensive Plan from mixed use to commercial. The site is generally located at the southwest corner of 33rd Street Southwest and Highway 22. It is approximately 38 acres in size. Planning and Zoning Commission and city staff recommend approval.
Okay, this one I'm a little confused on. Is this an ordinance or a resolution?
Mr. President, it is listed incorrectly in your agenda. This is an ordinance.
Okay,
This would be ordinance 1550.
1550. All right, since it's an ordinance, if there's anyone from the public that would like to comment on ordinance 1550, you may do so now. Just come to the podium, state your name, we'll hear your comments. Anyone wish to comment? No one wishes to comment on 1550. Are there comments or questions by commissioners? Not, is there a motion regarding first reading of 1550?
So moved, Mr. President.
Second.
We have the motion to approve the first reading and the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Mr. President, if you'd like me to move forward, I can move forward with the last future land use amendment. This is an amendment to the future land use map of the comprehensive plan from residential to commercial. The parcel is located at 2200 State Avenue. The parcel is 5.83 acres. The Planning Commission and city staff recommend approval.
I have a question. Just at 2200 State Avenue, what's that close to? Oh,
It's the northeast corner of State Avenue and 21st Street West.
okay. All right, this is ordinance, ordinance 1551.
Correct.
And if there's anyone from the public that would like to comment on 1551, you may do so now. Just come to the podium, state your name, hear your comments. Anybody? There's no one that wishes to comment. Any comments or questions by commissioners?
I'll move that we approve first reading of 1551.
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. That brings us to the 6:15 timetable agenda item. This is for Dakota Outdoor Advertising sign appeal, and Mr. Colling, you're introducing this.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would request that the commission not take action on this appeal or continue this appeal to the next meeting. As you're aware, Dakota Outdoor Advertising has made application for a series of outdoor advertising signs or billboards, both within city limits and within our zoning jurisdiction. Those sign applications were denied by Mr. Corton, and Dakota Outdoor Advertising has made appeal to the Board of Adjustment and now to the City Commission regarding those signs. We have worked closely with the applicant over the past couple of weeks. And as you know as well, our sign code is in the process of being revised. You have taken first reading on that, and we are preparing second reading to hopefully be before you at the next City Commission meeting. As we've talked with the applicant here, we have reached an agreement in principle whereby this applicant would withdraw several of its billboard applications for outdoor advertising or billboard signs within our Renaissance Zone District, and would receive permits for other billboards both within city limits and within our zoning jurisdiction. All of their proposed billboards that they would be constructing would be in compliance with the draft sign code as we have revised and as we have presented it to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So we believe that we'll have this matter resolved within the next few days. We have traded back and forth a draft of a settlement agreement that would resolve this matter entirely. So I think the best course of action, and what I would recommend tonight, is that you would take no action on the appeal, continue it on until the next city commission meeting, and I expect to have this matter wrapped up prior to that.
Thank you, Mr. Colling. You've heard his introduction and explanation of the situation. Are there any objections to Mr. Colling's recommendation to continue this to the next meeting? There are no objections, so that's what we will do. And then we will drop down to the non-timetable agenda, and I believe we're at Mr. Kessel's report. So, Mr. Kessel.
Thank you, President Johnson and Commission. I have a couple of thank yous that were presented to us that I shared with you in the Commission agenda. The first item after that then is the debris pickup, it's titled. And what that means is we've been getting a lot of concerns around town about debris spread throughout, especially on our heavily traveled areas. And so we recently engaged workers from the New England's correctional facility, and they'll be up on a regular basis. In fact, every Monday is the intention today to pick up a set of prioritized streets in town. That will start with the interstate from the middle interstate to exit 59. It will include State Avenue, Fairway Street, the West Business Loop and 30th, Villard, 3rd Avenue West or Highway 22 and 21st Street. They will continuously, once they've completed that circuit, they'll go back and start again unless we add streets to this list. In talking with DOT Director, or excuse me, DOT Engineer Larry Gengel, his staff did complete a pickup of the interstate from exit 64 to 10th Avenue East. They picked up 400 bags of debris in that short period, or that short span along the interstate. So we hope that we'll be as successful in picking up debris around town and use this as a kickoff event for the cleanup week that the fire department is sponsoring. So just wanted to bring your attention to that endeavor, and it'll start on May 12th, so next week. I also have a couple other things that I just wanted to give you a report on quickly, and the
Mr.
first
Kessel.
is... Oh, I'm sorry.
If I could, Mr.
Sure.
President. You've included a map showing some of these areas, and
Yes.
it's noticeable to me on this map that there are a number of streets in the community that have been adopted by various groups to accomplish that cleanup. We would still want to let everybody know tonight that there are plenty of streets available for adoption by volunteer groups, et cetera, et cetera. True?
Commissioner Jackson, thank you for mentioning that. Yes, and I should mention that the East Business Loop, 10th Avenue East, 21st Street, 15th Street, and part of the downtown are all adopted by gracious business and or families. Any of the streets that I have mentioned could additionally be adopted if a party, whether that party be a business or a family, would like to, by contacting the fire department. They're in charge of that program, and they'll be more than happy to assist you with adopting a street in town. And that can be any length that you desire. It doesn't have to be from Highway 22 all the way through town. It can be a portion of a roadway as well. So thank you, Commissioner Jackson, for mentioning that.
Mr. Kessel, it just appears to me that a significant amount of the debris that's in our community is construction debris. And with the North Dakota winds, I mean, we can blow that quite away from various construction sites. I would like maybe a little education perhaps at our next meeting on what our current ordinances and regulations are in terms of requiring construction sites to maintain a cleaner site than if they don't, cleaning up a site. I mean, I look at the States Avenue area, the north part of States Avenue, there's a lot of construction debris over there from a major construction site, and I really think they should be responsible for cleaning up not only their property, but the property adjacent to theirs where a lot of their debris is landed. And it's not just that construction site, you see it from others too.
I think later this evening, actually, you're going to hear a report about a potential for a revision to an ordinance that I think will be more effective than what we have in place with regard to construction cleanup. It'll start to, if we're able to craft the ordinance in the way that we would like to, it could impede their ability to achieve a certificate of occupancy for a site. So, but I'll let.
We're going to cover that later.
Yes, that'll come up a
Okay.
little bit later.
Thank you.
I think it'll address your thoughts there. Just on a couple other things quickly, the diversity picnic was held yesterday at the recreation center in town. It was the first picnic. They hope to become an annual event. There were numerous people in attendance. I was there myself. President Johnson was there as well to partake in the events and try some different foods than I'm used to. Other than they did have pizza, so if you didn't care for what they made, you always had that option. The other thing that I wanted to mention is we are starting to get requests for hookah bars to be created in town. A hookah bar is an interesting term. It goes back a long ways, and it has its roots in the Orient, and I had to look this up online because I wasn't exactly sure. Essentially what it is, it's a place to congregate, and in the past it was to smoke tobacco collectively. With our rules and laws that are in North Dakota, they wouldn't be able to smoke tobacco, but they can smoke herbal products that don't have tobacco in them. Because we've been having these requests for hookah bars in town, we don't specifically, we can't deny them. And if it's an interest of the city commission to do so, I'm here to tell you that the city staff does not have that ability. And I would like to know your desires as they relate to hookah bars. Is that a business model that you'd like to see in the community? And if not, we would need to be then directed to provide you with an ordinance that would prevent such an activity from taking place in town. And I'll be happy to try to answer additional questions regarding a hookah bar, but that's essentially what happens is they have a central pipe, I'll call it, with numerous places that someone can smoke from. I'm sorry, I'm not explaining it well. It looks like an octopus is what it looks like. And it's a communal smoking experience.
Herbs are drugs, right? Aren't they a type of drugs?
Well, obviously, controlled substances would not be allowed, but the type of herb that would be allowed would have to be approved and not controlled. But because of our smoking ban that our state has passed, it's one of the most significant in the nation in terms of its degree of difficulty, I'll call it. I just didn't know if this is something that the City Commission would like to take a specific action on, or if they would not.
Well, I haven't thought a whole lot about hookah bars. I don't even know how to spell it. But I'll just throw this out and let my fellow commissioners react. But one of the things we could do is you could draft an ordinance preventing them. Okay, we'll just start from there. But that'll start a process where you can then have public hearing, public comments. And if you do draft that, maybe you could come with a prepared presentation, maybe have address issues like what it does look like. I'm sure you can find photographs. If there are other hookah bars anywhere in the nation that maybe you can tell us about, you might address things like health concerns. I mean, if there's, if we could have maybe someone from the medical profession, give us some written comments or actually verbal comments, I mean, stuff like that. But to get the process going, you either have to have an ordinance saying we're going to allow these and this is what conditions we're going to allow them on, or you have to draft an ordinance that says we're not going to allow them, and then you get all the public comment and discussion going. So I just throw that out, and maybe someone else has different ideas here.
Okay, I think it's for the public to have input and decide, and then we can make a good informed decision from there.
Well, my opinion is smoking, and I don't like smoking, so.
Well, I like the mayor's idea. It sounds to me like a topic that we should get informed about, and I'm sure we can do that. I think we owe it to ourselves, to our community, to really get informed and make some good decisions about it.
And just because we would start, say, with an ordinance that doesn't allow it, doesn't necessarily mean that's what we're in favor of, but you have to write one up some way and get the process going. And if we're not addressing it and it's a concern, then this would be a way to go.
And just because we start that way doesn't mean that it ends that way either.
Exactly.
It just opens up the opportunity.
We'll certainly follow up then and go down that path. The next item I just again wanted to make you aware of is the Public Safety Center. The J.E. Dunn has bids out for that project specifically. Those bids will be back by May 13th. They hope to compile those bids and have the contract available on June 2nd. And if the commission acts favorably upon that June 2nd expectation, that means that the Public Safety Center could begin construction. So we are very close to bringing to you the ability to make a decision on the Public Safety Center. I'm also addressing the County Commission. Tomorrow we'll be discussing quiet zones, special assessments, growth, and then the annexation that you began this evening on the Public Works building. So there's several items that we continue to communicate with the county on, and that would conclude my report tonight unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kessel. Are there any comments or questions for the city administrator? All right, we'll move down to engineering, and Mr. Kubas, you're still here?
I'm still here. I'll be here for item number 1.
All right.
We had received an application from Armstrong Operating, and the applicant intends to drill a well immediately south of the existing Lodgepole oil well located south of the Heart River Municipal Golf Course. This additional well would not generate any truck traffic other than the trips needed to drill the well itself. This well would actually be a freshwater well, and then another well would be drilled into the Lodgepole formation, again, directly injecting the fresh water into the existing oil well to maintain the pressures in that oil well. As required by ordinance, the Dickinson Energy Committee met to discuss the application, and their recommendation is as follows. They would recommend that the well be allowed to be drilled and recommend that the cuttings be hauled off-site to a regional disposal site if economically feasible. If not feasible, then they would ask that the applicant upgrade the pit liner from the industry standard required by the North Dakota Industrial Commission of between 16 and 20 mils to increase that thickness to 40 mils. In our meeting with the Energy Committee, the applicant had agreed to the increased liner thickness. The commission is required by ordinance to hold a public hearing on this matter. This is just a report today. That hearing has been advertised and is scheduled for the next commission meeting on the 19th. I believe the applicant is still in the room, and they might want to share some more of the information that they have on this well with the commission.
Okay, but we're not to take any action tonight on this.
Tonight, the commission wouldn't be required. If this moves forward, there'll be a public hearing, and at that time, the commission would either concur with the Energy Committee's recommendations or make their own, I guess, their own statement to the applicants.
Okay. So is there, does the applicant desire to make some comments tonight?
Greetings all, I'm Kelly Armstrong. Just real brief. We have done all the proper notice and notifications of the landowners. We've had no objections to this point. There were some, we went through an extensive permitting process at the North Dakota Industrial Commission and with the State Water Commission. There were some concerns raised at the Water Commission, but in all honesty, that's because of the unclear wording of the permit, and those were alleviated. A couple things this won't do: it won't affect Patterson Lake. It's non-potable water. It'll never be a commercial disposal site. The injection well is 10,000 feet deep. The water well will be about 6,200 feet. It's in the Dakota Formation. It's impenetrable by shale on each side. Again, it's non-potable water. Eventually, these wells are going to make oil or make water. They're making oil now, and that water will be used to go back in. However, that's not as consistent, and we need to drill the water well to maintain the pressure. But regardless if anything gets drilled, the water will eventually come in. Without this system, that we would have to haul it off. With regards to the liner versus hauling the cuttings away, this is coming up more and more often with these cuttings pits. Obviously, economically feasible is kind of a moving target. It will be significantly more expensive for us to haul it away. The liner would obviously be our preferred method, but I think we're here to work with you. I mean, you guys are going to hear this, and that's why I'm trying to answer some questions. This won't affect anybody's water wells in the area. I mean, we're way deeper and things of that nature, and I think the history of the 2 wells drilling is a pretty good indication of what we'll do in the future. So if you guys have any questions or anything you would like before the next meeting, ask me now. I mean, we can provide any more detail as necessary.
Any comments or questions from commissioners?
I have 2 questions. Mr. Armstrong, do we have other wells in the Dickinson vicinity with cuttings pits?
Yes, I would. You have 2 right there because we had cuttings pits there for both the Angle and the Grumman, and I would almost guarantee that every well that's been drilled prior to this point has a cuttings pit with the regular liner, not the thicker liners. I mean, it's no small feat. It's about 2.5 to 3 times more expensive than the regular one, but it's also 2.5, 3 times thicker. But every lodgepole well in the vicinity would have a cuttings pit on it.
Okay, the other question I have, we've certainly had challenges as the city has grown to encompass an oil well with how to handle that oil well, be it residential, commercial area. That may never happen in this location, but it may. How does the cuttings pit complicate that, in your opinion?
The cuttings kit, the primary problems with the cuttings pit are when you do it, if there's usually issues. Once it's done, before you bury it, it has to be 4 feet, and it gets solidified into what they call fly ash. And once it's solidified and buried, it's fine. Your concerns would be while you're actually drilling the well. Once you do it, it's essentially a big concrete block with the liner around it. So once it's completed, I mean, your real danger in a cuttings pit is, quite frankly, when you're drilling the well. It's not when it's finished.
Thank you.
You said when it's buried, how thick is the top cover generally over these?
What is the top coverage, do you know? On top of it? Yeah. 4 feet below grade.
So, okay.
But as far as leaching and things like that, no, not once they're solidified, no.
Any other comments or questions?
President Johnson, I would add too, after our meeting, we did a little research with staff and tried to find other ordinances, similar ordinances that other cities may have. We looked to Williston. They do have an extensive ordinance on drilling an oil well in the ETZ of Williston, and the reserve pit or the cuttings pit, they don't address that specifically. So I'm assuming that they are following the NDIC's regulations, similar to how the other wells in Dickinson, existing wells, were drilled prior. So.
And I would also add that there are specific instances that the NDIC requires you to haul them away, and I turned on the TV. And this isn't one of them. However, obviously, it is in the city area. That would be something that you guys may choose to do. and ladies.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Mr. Kubis?
With that, I would
Yes,
like
you
to
said
turn it over to Mr.
you had to leave, so thank you for spending as much time with us as you did, and we'll excuse you. And Mr. Zuroff is going to complete the rest of the engineering reports.
President Johnson, Commission, thank you. Most of these topics are reports, but I'll go through the memo that was written by Mrs. Marshak. First of all, the East Broadway 24-inch water main bid was, the bids were accepted April 30th. The notice of award and approval will be brought to you at the May 19th meeting. The project is located along Broadway. It's from the finished water pump station going east. And I think one of the reasons Mrs. Marshak wanted to bring this up was that they're holding an open house on Wednesday, May 7th in this room. The open house will be held from 4:30 till 7:30 with a presentation by KLJ. I think one of the reasons they had this meeting is it's along Broadway is going to be a lot of interference with this project, and they wanted to inform property owners and commercial businesses along that route of what the project entails. I guess I'll keep going with the reports.
Yes, please.
The second is the data collections. The city invited several firms to supply us with proposals on obtaining data throughout the city, including the data required for HDR to move forward with the drainage master plan. We received 6 proposals. We're currently working with KLJ on an agreement and anticipate returning at the next meeting also with a contract for approval.
Gary, would you mind taking Craig's spot? We're having a hard time picking you up on the mic. It might be easier, or slide over, I guess.
Can you hear me better now?
That's better.
Okay. So the data collections will be brought to the meeting on May 19th. The last thing that Loretta and engineering has is floodplain administration. City staff met with members of the State Water Commission and FEMA on Thursday, May 1st to review the city's policies on floodplain administration and for guidance on policies and regulations regarding floodplain management. The meeting opened additional lines of communication and broadened the city's staff understanding of floodplain management and administration. So that concludes engineering's report. And if there's any questions, I would hope you wait till engineering returns at the next meeting.
Okay, well, we'll let you go on to Public Works, and we have several items there, beginning with a National Public Works Week proclamation. Can you tell us what that's about?
Sure, President Johnson and Commission. The week of May 18th through 24th is the National Public Works Week. And to celebrate the event, the City of Dickinson, along with the North Dakota chapter of American Public Works Association and KLJ, is planning an open house for local 5th graders. We are planning to have information regarding the importance of the contribution Public Works has on the daily lives, building, managing, and operating the heart of our local communities and building the quality of life. This year's theme, Building for Today, Planning for Tomorrow, represents the classic idea of stewardship embodied by the profession of Public Works. We are planning on having giveaways such as pencils, balloons, stickers, prizes, and other Public Works equipment for viewing. That again is scheduled for the week of 18th through the 24th, and we haven't, we don't have an exact day determined for when that event will take place, but I'll bring it at the next commission. And I believe you have a proclamation.
We do. We have a proclamation here that I'll read. Whereas public work services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an understanding and an informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operations of public works systems and programs such as water, sewers, streets and highways, public buildings, and solid waste collection, and whereas the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depends on these facilities and services, And whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, are vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of public works officials, and whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. Now therefore, I, Dennis W. Johnson, President of the Board of Commissioners, City of Dickinson, do hereby proclaim the week of May 18th through the 24th, 2014 as National Public Works Week in the City of Dickinson, and I call upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions which public works officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. And unless there are objections by my fellow commissioners, I will sign the proclamation and pass it on to City Administrator Sean Kessel to witness. And I would certainly echo the message of the proclamation. I think all of our citizens, and I know especially this commission, have had a real education the past 2 or 3 years in the importance of public works, and when you're in an oil impact economy like ours, the challenge in maintaining the level of services our citizens demand and deserve. And I think our staff under its current leadership is doing quite well. So.
Thank you, President Johnson. And I do want to commend our staff in all facets of public works on the amount of time and effort they give to the job. So.
Okay, we'll let you go on, yes.
Yep, thank you. Next, I have the Lift Station 12 bid. Mike Berg with Apex is here to do a short presentation on that.
President Johnson, members of the City Commission. We opened bids on Lift Station 12 last week, and I'll walk through just a brief overview of that project before we ask for awarding the contract. This is an overview map of the City of Dickinson from the comprehensive plan. In general, wastewater in the City of Dickinson travels towards the Hart River. Everything runs downhill. We have main collectors down 10th Avenue East, another main collector that travels roughly towards the southeast, and the new infrastructure is bringing wastewater from the northwest part of town, around the west, and through South Dickinson to the new influent pump station. The influent pump station is under construction and will pump wastewater out to the new water reclamation facility. The project that bid last week was Lift Station 12. It consists of a lift station on, up on 15th Street and 10th Avenue, and a pipeline that will come over to the West Business Loop. In addition, there is gravity sewer through the Prairie Creek development area and a railroad crossing for a force main and a water main from other projects. We have a lot of boring, jack and boring work on this project, so it made sense to add those in with this contract. This is similar to the previous lift stations we've done. Firm capacity is 4,000 gallons a minute. This station also has odor and corrosion control to protect your existing system. Pretty nondescript building. This will be similar to the West Pump Station. It's built to be low maintenance and minimize life cycle costs. This is similar to that, the West Pump Station on the West Business Loop and Old Highway 10. If you've driven past there, it's a pretty big hole. You don't realize that once it's built, it looks like a big garage basically. But these stations are 25 to 35 feet deep. This particular station, we have the pumps that are in the bottom, approximately 5.5 feet tall. We talked a little bit about the pipe already. In addition, we included a SCADA system, which is a supervisory control and data acquisition system for the water utility as part of this project. There is an existing SCADA system that is been on its last legs. The SCADA system is the alarm monitoring for all the city's lift stations, booster stations, and tanks. They're tied together via radios, and that system has been really struggling over the last year. So upgrading that system was incorporated into this project. Final design estimate was $11 million. We have been including a location factor of 15% for a total design estimate of $12.7 million. We had 2 general contractor bids, 1 mechanical and 2 electrical. So not a lot of bids on this project. Our lowest combination was $11.5 million. So in line with what the estimates are. We did use a little bit of that location factor. So with the $11.5 million construction costs, 5% contingencies, that gives us a $12 million construction subtotal. Another $1.1 million for design, right-of-way, and construction gives us a project total of $13,239,000. Project schedule, I'd ask or recommend that we award the contract this evening. We'll have a notice to proceed in June. Substantial completion is March of 2015 with a final completion in July of next year. One more item on the award of the project. It has, if we award it tonight, it should be awarded contingent on Department of Health approval. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Berg. Are there any comments or questions?
I'm curious for either Mr. Berg or Mr. Kessel. Did your engineer's estimate match the number we've been using in the CIP? I don't expect that will always be the case.
It wasn't much different. The routes have changed a little bit. There were,
Sure.
and we've added a couple other projects to it.
My point is this, it's one thing to see the comparison between the bids and the engineer's estimate. We want to see that. But as we bid each of these projects, I'd like to see how it compares to the number in the CIP also, because I don't think the engineer's estimates and those numbers will always match.
Well, that's correct. That would be an amazing coincidence if they did. In this case, we're carrying 12.2
Okay.
for this project.
If we could do that as each of these projects is bid.
And what did the total of this one just come up to?
13.3.
13.3
And
total.
in our capital improvement plan, it was 12.2.
Correct.
So we've got a negative 1.1 here. But we've also picked up on other projects.
We have. You know, I can't tell you the net effect right off the top of my head, but we have picked up on a couple of projects.
I would like to add that when this first was put together too, that Prairie Creek extension was not part of this project. You know, we continued to add it, but that North Leg was not part of the 12 project that was added later.
Were they on the CIP plan in another line item?
Not necessarily, no.
No.
I think it was all
Okay.
inclusive in the lift station 12.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's fine. I understand there will be those differences, but again, just to try to keep a sense for how we're doing with our CIP.
In a follow-up to that, all of the sewer-related CIPs are being paid for through the SRF fund. And the total of the projects, I believe, in our SIP plan is about $75 million. And our request is closer to $80 million. So there is some ability to weather a storm, so to speak, from a bidding perspective.
Okay, so you've heard the engineer's recommendation is that we award the contract contingent upon approval by the North Dakota Department of Health. Would there be such a motion?
I would make that motion.
Is there a
Second.
second? Okay, we have the motion and the second. Is there other discussion you'd like to do on this item? There's no other discussion. We'll vote. Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
Ms. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion carries. Thank
Okay.
you for being here, Mr. Burke.
Thank you.
The next item, before you introduce it, Mr. Zuroff, I do have, this is an item involving Montana Dakota Utilities. I do have a conflict, so we will ask Mr. Jackson to conduct that item, and I will be abstaining. So, Mr. Zuroff, you may continue.
First of all, I want to thank Mr. Burke for doing the presentation. The next item on the agenda is a underground easement. It is on the lift station site, the west lift station site, paralleling Old Highway 10. It's a 10-foot easement right-of-way that is enclosed, and city staff has reviewed and recommends approval.
Okay, do we have any questions for Mr. Zuroff on the easement? If not, we simply need a motion to approve the easement, correct?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, we will vote. Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
Chair will vote aye, and the mayor is abstaining, I presume. Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Next I have, just for information purposes, is I haven't enclosed the 2013 Consumer Confidence Report. This is required annually, and we've enclosed that for informational purposes. I don't have much on project updates. I guess I'm open for any questions. If you have any questions about the projects, other than that, I will be done.
Thank you, Mr. Zuroff. If there are no questions, we'll proceed down to community development, and Mr. Catan will turn it over to you for your reports.
Mr. President, I just have one to dovetail what you had spoken about earlier, and also City Administrator Kessel as well. We sympathize, we understand your concerns with respect to appearance of the community, the trash and debris, the enforcement of that, augment that with erosion control problems that we've had during this development over the last several years, and the process in which we enforce things. That takes time. The process, essentially, you have to notify, you have to go to court, and then a fine could be potentially levied for that. That takes several weeks to months to go through that process. The last executive meeting, we bandied around the topic of, is there a better way to enforce it, or maybe augment or change the code in order for us to address the situation in a more prompt and expeditious manner, and came up with the idea, and we wanted to see if there would be support, general support from the commission before we move forward, would be that, in essence, if we went out to do an inspection, a building inspection, and the site had trash on site, that for staff we would have the ability and support from the commission to walk off site because they're already in violation. We feel that the ability to maybe withhold some services or inspections, to require them to come back to abate the problem before we do that, would probably, I feel, would significantly advance the process of removing it. Time is one thing that we do not have in our development season, and I feel that if we had that ability, if we amended the code accordingly, that we could address a lot of these situations, if nothing else, more prompt, in a quicker fashion. It's very difficult to address on some of these, on some sites, to determine where the debris is coming from, especially when you have all construction sites all around the area. There are some where it's very obvious, where our codes need to be updated if we're talking about appearance issues such as staging and addressing that. Our current codes, we have provisions under our property maintenance code that deals with trash and aesthetics and basic life safety issues. That is a process to enforce that. Under our Public Works Department, there are some codes to address the stormwater. You've heard in the past that our maximum fine that we can do for erosion control is $100 a day. And for many of these developers, in some ways, it's cost effective for them to continue on with a $100 fine if they are fined that way. So I would like to see if there is general support that legal and staff could come together and propose an ordinance that if we come to a site that is obvious in violation of the aforementioned issues, that we would have the ability to walk off site and they would have to correct it before we could do an inspection.
Thank you, Mr. Curtin. Commissioners, do you support such an effort?
I think it's a reasonable effort.
I agree.
I agree as well.
Yeah, and I as well too. I mean, I think they've got to be required to secure their materials and the wrapping materials that their raw materials come with, and on the erosion control also. Yes, I mean, you can find examples in our community. I have one in my own backyard where they haven't done a great job of securing, managing the erosion side of things, and I have my neighbor's construction dirt in my yard.
President Johnson, I would like to add, we do have a chief in stormwater now, and he is out enforcing some of the stormwater regulations. They've sent notices to home builders and construction companies in the last couple of months. We do have a stormwater hotline that should be on our website, so if you have any issues with stormwater, please call that hotline, and he will look into the problem.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know. But we have a nice community. We've always, in the past, been complimented about how clean it looks, and this year when the snow melted, it wasn't near as clean as it's been in the past, and a lot of the materials are construction materials. Not all, but a lot are. So
Well, thank you.
we look forward to your proposed ordinance changes.
I will work with legal, and we'll also develop a policy for that. So, and also a PR campaign to let the development community be aware of that as we move forward with it. So, thank you for your support.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Katana. Is there anything from the commission? If there's anyone from the public who would like to address the commission, you may do so now. Just come to the podium, state your name, we'll hear your comments. There's no one from the public. Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have the motion and the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. The motion carries. We're adjourned.